The One Piece manga just confirmed one of the most popular theories, which is that Blackbeard absolutely can eat a third devil fruit. And this mind-blowing reveal comes with massive implications for the story, as Blackbeard considers whether or not to eat the Ope Ope no Mi after defeating Trafalgar Law. And even though Law manages to somehow escape, we now know that Blackbeard will surely be hunting for a third supremely powerful devil fruit to pair with the strongest devil fruits in the story. And yet that's not the only epic clash in this chapter, as we get confirmation that the former fleet admiral Aokiji is actually one of Blackbeard's Titanic captains, and that he is on Pirate Island right now to stop Garp from rescuing Koby. But that is not going to be an easy feat, as we get even more ridiculous evidence that Garp is just the most insanely powerful marine in the story. And somehow, if all of that wasn't enough yet, we also learn even more clues about Aokiji's mysterious time after leaving the Marines, and more hints about where the elusive Fourth Road Poneglyph might be as well. Starting off with the epic conclusion to Law versus Blackbeard. Now in chapter 1063, we first see Law and Blackbeard clash on Winter Island, and in this all-out battle, Law used his godlike devil fruit to fend off the darkness and the earthquake fruit at the same time. But the fighting has finally reached its conclusion, as we see a bloodied and panting Blackbeard standing over a defeated Law. And it's in this scene that we seem to finally get as close to an answer as we've ever had to one of the biggest mysteries in all of One Piece. That's because ever since Marineford, when Blackbeard did the unthinkable and took Whitebeard's devil fruit for himself, we have always wondered if he would be able to eat a third devil fruit as well. And the answer seems to be, yeah, as Blackbeard openly wonders if he should take Law's powers for himself and use them, or just sell the coveted Ope Ope no Mi for the highest bidder. And while he doesn't outright say that he wants to eat it here, we can basically assume that he is talking about himself for a few reasons. First off, the Japanese really makes it sound like it's meant for him, and also all of his other Titanic captains already have devil fruit, so unless anyone can eat 2 devil fruits, not just Blackbeard, that rules out all of them. And I really don't think that Blackbeard would give it to just some rando of his crew, so that really only leaves himself as an option to eat the Ope Ope no Mi for himself. However, if Blackbeard actually decided to sell it, there is one group in particular who would definitely be interested in this fruit, and that is the world governments. Now, we've known that they've been after this specific fruit since we saw them try so hard to obtain it during Law's heartbreaking flashback. And then during the last chapter, we learned that Blackbeard wants to officially join the world government as a kingdom. So maybe instead of capturing Koby, it would have been smarter to try and trade the Ope Ope no Mi in exchange for membership in the world government. But whether he wanted to eat it or trade Law's fruit in for money or power or whatever, this mind-blowing reveal really brings out the old question of how exactly can Blackbeard eat more than 1 devil fruit in the first place? Now, we don't get any clues that anyone else in this crew is able to do this, so it truly seems like this ability is specific to Blackbeard himself. But why is that? Now, personally, I am dying to know, but a few theories that we've discussed before on this channel are that Blackbeard has multiple personalities or people, that there's something weird about his body that allows him to eat multiple devil fruits, or it could be some other super secret power of the darkness fruit that we just don't know about yet, kind of like how Luffy's fruit turned out to be something completely different. It is also unclear if Blackbeard would need to kill Law in order to take his devil fruit, as Law is clearly still alive in this chapter, and every time we've seen devil fruits taken or talked about being taken, it somehow involved someone needing to be killed. For example, with Whitebeard's death in Marineford, and when Burgess wanted to take Luffy's fruit on Dressrosa. But while Blackbeard takes his time to decide what to do, this scene takes a wild turn of events. Law's loyal mink polar bear Beppo takes a rumble ball, which he clearly got from Chopper during Wano, which allows him to enter the mink Sulong form. And normally this form can only be used during the full moon, but apparently this drug or rumble ball that was developed by Chopper allows them to enter the form whenever they want, which is so interesting because we're getting even more evidence that Chopper is truly becoming a medical genius. But also, why didn't they use that during Wano? Anyways, in this beastly, truly amazing looking form, Beppo is able to steal Law away from all the Blackbeard pirates and escape into the sea, leaving the other members of Law's crew abandoned on the island, which leaves us all with a super interesting question. Where does Law go from here, and does he still have his fruit? There are multiple options here. First, Egghead Island should be somewhat close by since Law and Luffy both came to these islands directly after parting paths at Wano. So yeah, it is possible that Beppo will take Law to Egghead where they will encounter the Straw Hats once again. And even though Law and Luffy declared their alliance over, I could see Law asking for Luffy's help if it meant saving his men. Who knows, maybe this and Kid's defeat might mean that both of them actually join the crew? However, another completely different option, and one that personally has me extremely excited, is that Beppo could take Law to his home island Zou. Now, this would of course bring the enormous walking elephant Zanisha back into the story, as we've only seen it for a brief few chapters when it came to Wano. Clearly, Zanisha still has some important role to play in the story, so this could be one way to reintroduce the massive elephant once again. And even more exciting is the entire country of Minks living on Zanisha's back. Because whether this was a rumble ball or some sort of new medicine, it can let Minks go Sulong whenever they choose, and this entire country, who are now allies with Luffy, just would get way stronger than it already was. We already saw in Wano that Sulong Minks can be devastating fighters, so a whole country, a whole army of these ferocious animals would be insanely powerful for the battle still to come. And of course, there is no greater upcoming battle than the race to find the One Piece. And with Law defeated, we can assume that Blackbeard has now taken his copies of the road poneglyphs, just like Shanks did with Kid, which are necessary to reach the final island Laugh Tale. And we did a full breakdown of who has which road poneglyph in a recent chapter review, but basically this means that Blackbeard now has at least 2 of the road poneglyphs, and as we will discuss in just a few minutes, he is likely to get at least 1 more very soon. But now that Law is defeated, this means that the final players in the race to find the One Piece are now all set. Law and Captain Kid, who were just defeated by Shanks, are no longer serious contenders, which basically just leaves us with Luffy, Shanks, Blackbeard, and of course, the most important character, Buggy / Crossguild. Come on, you can never leave Buggy out of these kind of important events anyways, and he is a Yonko, he'll definitely be there. But now we have to ask, what will Blackbeard do next from here? Will he pursue another strong devil fruit to take as his own, or just move on to wherever his next objective is? And if he's going hunting for a 3rd devil fruit, we have to ask, of course, what power does Blackbeard actually want for himself? And while in this chapter it does seem like we get a hint that he isn't quite dead set yet on a particular devil fruit to eat as his 3rd power. And it seems as if he wasn't sure if he wanted to eat the Ope fruit for himself or not. So maybe he is still undecided or simply waiting to see what supremely overpowered devil fruit he can get his hands on. So it is certainly possible that he will try to chase after Law and Beppo to take back the Ope no Mi, but if he can't do that, there are some other fantastic options for fruit that he could really want. And personally, I've never really thought it makes a lot of sense for him to eat another Logia fruit, as I don't know how he could be darkness and another element at the same time, so it basically leaves us with a zone power or a Paramecia fruit. And of course, there are a few really strong zone fruits that Blackbeard could target. Kaido's defeat, Blackbeard could be after his mythical devil fruit, or with Kaido not ruling over Wano, he could also try to sneak in and go after 2 other mythical fruits still on the island. Those are Momo's version of the dragon fruit and Yamato's Okochino Makami fruit, which lets her turn into this wolf guardian deity. And Blackbeard sneaking into Wano would make sense because we just saw the Blackbeard pirates sneak into Big Mom's territory to kidnap Big Mom's daughter Pudding. But besides Wano, there's currently a large gathering of strong devil fruit users on Egghead Island, so Blackbeard could simply join the epic conflict there in order to steal some sort of devil fruit, such as the leopard fruit, or even Stussie's unnamed vampire-like fruit, or there's also Luffy. It is also entirely possible that Vegapunk has a storehouse of strong devil fruits on Egghead Island that could be taken during the fighting as well. And of course, there are also the Straw Hat devil fruits that Blackbeard could have his eye on. And actually, speaking of the Straw Hats, has anyone else noticed that it has now been 3 whole chapters since we've actually seen any of our main characters? I mean, how crazy is it that in the middle of an arc like that, we just get completely different characters, but it's somehow even more epic than that. But personally, I'm not complaining since we just keep getting these juicy, incredible chapters outside the events of Egghead Island. And remember, we have seen one of the Blackbeard ships arriving at Egghead Island, but if Blackbeard doesn't chase Law or go to any of these islands I just mentioned, then the most likely option is simply that he will return to his home base, which is Pirate Island, to join the earth-shattering conflict between the increasingly badass Garp and his former pupil, Kuzan. And this clash will undoubtedly have a massive effect on the future of the Blackbeard pirates, which we will discuss in full detail in just a moment. But on a quick side note, since Kuzan is no longer an admiral, we won't use his admiral nickname Aokiji anymore, since he is not Aokiji anymore, and instead just call him by his actual name, which is Kuzan. But before we get into that titanic fight, we see a flashback about the first time that Kuzan actually met with Blackbeard. Now, we're being told that this event is roughly a year after Kuzan lost his devastating island warping battle against the current fleet Admiral Akainu. After this battle, Kuzan left the Marines because he couldn't stand taking orders from Akainu, and we aren't told what Kuzan has been doing in between that fight and this scene here in the flashback, but there are a number of hints that we can try to use and figuring that out. For example, in chapter 698, we see Kuzan for the very first time after the time skip when he saved Vice Admiral Smoker on Punk Hazard. And in that conversation, Kuzan's outfit kind of seems to suggest that he's still wandering as a loner and has not yet joined the Blackbeard Pirates. I mean, just look at the difference between this outfit and these that he's wearing right now as one of Blackbeard's 10 Titanic captains. Like, clearly something changed in the few months since Punk Hazard. However, at the same time, if it's 1 year after, timeline-wise, it kind of doesn't add up, really. Now, Blackbeard could have offered Kuzan to join him halfway through the 2-year time skip right here, as we see in the flashback, but he might have taken a while before actually accepting the offer to join the Emperor's crew. It's kind of weird timeline-wise, but regardless, it's clear that Kuzan has been acting on his own for some time during and after the time skip, which does make me wonder what exactly he was doing then. Now, Blackbeard even said in this chapter that pirates can still have their own agenda, so maybe Blackbeard just lets Kuzan do whatever he wants, unless directly ordered by Blackbeard, as he is clearly right now. But the clearest answer to all of the speculation, and the one most people expect, is that he has resigned from the Marines and joined the secret Marine organization SWORD himself. We just learned in chapter 1080 that all the members of SWORD are former Marines who are no longer affiliated with the world government, so that they can basically act on their own behalf without waiting for the okay from higher ups. Basically, they are like Garp, who pretty much does whatever he wants anyways. And the evidence for Kuzan being a member of SWORD is made even clearer when we compare some of Kuzan's dialogue from chapter 699 to what we just learned in this chapter. Take a look at what Kuzan says while talking to Smoker. First, he states that you don't have to be affiliated with the Navy to accomplish things, and that there are some things that you can only see when you remain independent. I mean, that is also exactly how SWORD was described in chapter 1080, so it makes complete sense to me, at least, that he's still acting on his own belief as a member of SWORD. But nonetheless, I mean, you know what happens in this chapter. And at the end of his conversation with Smoker, he even warns the Vice Admiral about the dangers of Doflamingo in Dressrosa, and then went on to tell the Marines to not reveal that they had seen him. And it makes sense that he would only care about these things if 1, was part of a secret Marine organization, and 2, he planned to go undercover and didn't want Blackbeard finding out that he was still helping his own buddies. So personally, it does still seem to all line up that he has infiltrated Blackbeard's crew with some intention of betraying Blackbeard later on in the story, and it wouldn't be Oda, of course, if he didn't set up a red herring trying to distract us a little bit from that fact. But back to the flashback that we see in this chapter. Now, Blackbeard arrives on the scene and 3 of his Titanic captains are already frozen solid by Kuzan's ice powers. And while one of Blackbeard's allies thinks that it would be best to kill Kuzan right away, they instead have a jolly old time drinking and having fun inside the bar. Also, it does seem like Kuzan could kill all of them if he wanted to here, which pretty badass from his end. And who knows, maybe Kuzan has actually changed since joining the Marines, but this is certainly not the laid back, lazy and emotionless dude that we are used to seeing, which still makes me think even more that this is all an act that he's putting on just to fool Blackbeard. And eventually Blackbeard asks Kuzan about the man with the burn scar because he thinks that this person might have the final road poneglyph, like Kid also suggested at the end of Wano. And this was truly a massive shock when I read this. I mean, we barely learned about this mysterious figure in chapter 1056. Kid knew about him and his connections to the One Piece, but if Blackbeard's crew knew about him over a year ago, just how secretive is this guy? Well, we did get some more information about who this could possibly be back in chapter 1066. There we learned that the giant former Marine Saul, who we thought was killed during the destruction of Ohara, was most likely alive. So it makes a lot of sense that he is the man marked by flames, since he literally was running through flames on Ohara and he could have ice burns after being frozen by Kuzan. And we see him wrapped in bandages in this panel right here. Now, since Saul was connected to the incident of Ohara and those same scholars were studying the poneglyphs, it would be logical that Saul could be protecting the final road poneglyph. Plus, we already know from Vegapun's flashback that the giants of Elbaf savaged everything that they could find from Ohara, so it would certainly be reasonable for the final road poneglyph to be on Elbaf with Saul. And while Kuzan does actively denies knowing anything about the man marked by flames or the final road poneglyph and saying that he didn't see anything like a road poneglyph on Ohara, he could just be lying to protect Saul and the poneglyph since they were friends. And yet another rumor that is hinted at in this scene is that the man marked by flames travels on a black ship and has some sort of ability to create massive whirlpools. And a black ship makes me think of this ship, which was captained by Roxy Zebek. Now, another option is that it could be referring to the leader of the Revolutionary Army, of course, Monkey D. Dragon. After all, whirlpools can be formed by strong winds, and we do know Dragon has some kind of wind weather powers, since he basically always is accompanied by strong winds whenever he appears in the story. Plus, we found out recently that Dragon also has ties to the scholars of Ohara, so it is possible that Dragon and Saul became allies after the events on Ohara. Also, he does have that face tattoo, which might have to do something with flames. Who knows? Could interpret it that way. But all of this makes me wonder how anyone knows about the man marked by flames in the first place. I mean, if this person is Saul, then he should have been in hiding for literally decades. But somehow Blackbeard and even Kid had heard rumors about him. So could there be any traitors within the Giants of Elbaf? Or is this mysterious figure simply someone completely different and new that we haven't even met yet? Whatever the answer is, it'll clearly be just as exciting as the mouth-watering clash that we get between Kuzan and Garp on Pirate Island in this chapter. I mean, we first see Kuzan freeze Kobe's friends, and then after a brief bit of dialogue, Kuzan freezes Garp with an ice ball attack just like he did against Whitebeard during Marineford. And of course, just like his legendary former rival, Garp easily breaks out of the ice, and in a burst of blinding speed, Garp grabs Kuzan's face in a hockey-covered fist and slams him into the ground with such tremendous power that it reminds me of all the ground-shattering attacks that Luffy has used to defeat his opponents over the years. Truly one family. But of course, beside this mind-blowing action, there's also a ton to unpack from the brief dialogue between these two as well. Now, before they clash, Kuzan reveals that he was actually trained by Garp personally sometime in the past. This leads even more evidence to the theory that Kuzan is secretly a member of SWORD, since Kobe and Helmeppo are both members of SWORD as well, and they were both trained by Garp. And I mean, I don't know, maybe this is just crazy levels of copium I'm having right here on my part, because he certainly doesn't look very friendly during this clash. Seriously, if he is secretly undercover, then he is putting on a painful amount of effort into convincing the Blackbeard pirates and everyone around there that he is still on their side. I mean, if he is an undercover agent, touche for those acting skills, Aokiji. And while it appears that Garp has the advantage in this epic battle, we simply never know with fights in One Piece how it'll actually turn out. I mean, this could change very quickly. Maybe Kuzan isn't taking this fight seriously yet, or maybe the other Blackbeard Titanic captains will come in and together overwhelm Garp, or maybe Garp will once again prove that he is simply the strongest Marine and just wipe them all out anyways. And it's still not all that we can learn from this legendary battle, because since Kuzan is now confirmed to be here on Pirate Island, this information partially solves a mystery from chapter 1079. Because for a single panel in that chapter, we saw that one of Blackbeard's ships is currently just outside of Egghead Island. Now, previously, I thought that that this might be Kuzan himself, since it would make sense for him to join a conflict with the world government. But clearly, that's not the case. And since Kuzan is here on this island right now, we now have a pretty good idea of who is coming to Egghead Island. Right now, there are these 5 Titanic captains here on Pirate Island, and currently accompanying Blackbeard are those 3, which only leaves Lafitte and Katarina Devon, or Blackbeard himself and the rest of his crew. But honestly, it does make perfect sense for these 2 to be the ones coming to Egghead Island, because there is no one better at sneaking around on Blackbeard's crew than these 2 are right here. We already know that Lafitte is super stealthy, as he even managed to sneak into Marijoa. He has some sort of hypnosis powers, and he can even fly with his wings. But even better for trickery is Katarina Devon, who has the shape-shifting powers of the mythical 9-tailed fox devil fruit. And so together, these 2 form the perfect pair to steal into the chaos of Egghead Island and take whatever they want. It could be the copies of the road poneglyphs that the Straw Hats have, or it could be that they have their eyes on a super strong devil fruit that they want to capture for someone else if they die. And so really, whenever one conflict seems to be wrapping up here, the others are just getting more incredible with every chapter, and I just cannot wait to see who comes out on top in each of these world-changing battles. And if you want to know why the godly powers of Garp will completely change the rest of the story, you can watch that analysis right here. Thanks for watching, and I see you in the next one.